Today's video is all about the easiest way to make slip, which is clay and water and the glue of clay. You will need water, clay, a container to store your slip in, and I prefer to use a paintbrush when using slip. This video will break down the easiest way to make it in the classroom so that you can get to working on your clay projects. If you love learning about art, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an art tutorial. I'm using a pretty small container for my slip today. I started a new school, so I have limited resources. And then I have fresh clay, but because I'm brand new, I don't have any dried out clay waiting on me like I did in my old classroom. Clay dries out quickest in small little pieces. So what I'm doing is I'm breaking up a piece of clay into tiny little beads of clay, and I'm simply putting them in the container that I'll be using. And my slip is going to be about half clay, half water, so I'm just kind of measuring out how much I will need. Now, if you added water to your slip right now, it would take much longer to create your slip. So if you let the clay pieces dry out first until they're bone dry, the water can absorb 100% of the surface area and it really breaks down quicker. Now, if you've been teaching clay for a long time, you're probably thinking, duh. And if you are in a classroom that already has dried out clay, then this step is not necessary. These pieces that I made dried out overnight. Because they were so small, they dried out quicker, and now they're ready to be added with water. I am adding room temperature water. Warm water would work best, but unfortunately we don't have hot water in our sinks in our classrooms, so I'm just working with what I have, and I'm adding my small bone dry pieces of clay to my water. You might have a lot of bone dry pieces laying around your classroom, but like I said, this is great for people who are teaching students to make their own slip. And also it's great if you're in a brand new clean classroom that doesn't have dried out clay sitting around somewhere. So you can already see the bubbles. The water is really getting in there, really dissolving the clay. And let's do a time lapse. I'm gonna have this kind of sit here. Look at the bubbles. This is about 20 minutes. Really fun to watch. You can see the clay breaking and dissolving because it's all dry. It has surface area for the water just to completely dissolve. If it was only part of the way dry, it would not dissolve this quickly. So the trick is make sure you're adding bone dry clay to warm water. So this is about 20 minutes of a time lapse of the water really getting in there. So around this point, it's time to take a brush and to stir. If I were doing this in the class, I might have students make their slip and kind of stir it continuously, but I just thought that time lapse was really interesting to watch. And you do kind of have to stir. I like to use a brush in the classroom, one of these clay brushes, because it cuts down on germs and it really allows you to apply the slip when attaching clay pieces exactly where you want them to go. Like I said, this bottle is really, or this container is really small. I think a yogurt container would probably be a better size, but I don't have 28 yogurt containers sitting around to have my students use. So they'll be making their slip in these little containers that have lids. I do like to store the clay without a lid, so if it dries out, you just repeat your steps and add your water. All right, so slip, you can also add a little vinegar to it to really make it work well when attaching your clay pieces. But I like my slip to be the consistency of melted ice cream. So I'm gonna keep stirring until it's not lumpy. And if you're working with clay, just keep working and stir a little bit as you go. Again, I like for my students to make their own slip because it's their learning process. I know how to do it, so I might as well let them really embrace how to make slip themselves. And then they're much more comfortable with when to add more water and when to add more clay. They'll have plenty of little dried pieces to add to clay as they're working. I like my slip consistency to be that of melted ice cream, so I feel like this is a really nice creamy consistency. Yes, there's still lumps, but it doesn't matter. You're just using slip to glue or connect your clay pieces together. Thank you so much for sticking around and making art with me. And if you're interested in more tutorials, check these out. Also, find me on Instagram at thatartteacher_Machado to see what my students are up to in my classroom.